The alarm lights flashed red across the metal walls of the space station. Sound was loud and constant, a sharp beep that never stopped. It was the sound of danger. It was the sound of the end. Outside the thick glass windows, the black space was filled with fire. Ships were exploding. Large alien vessels made of dark metal were running away. They were fleeing from the enemy. The enemy was the Vorax swarm. They were like insects made of steel and hunger. They did not take prisoners. They did not want money or land. They only wanted to consume everything. The Galactic Alliance had tried to stop them for years. Now the Alliance was losing. Strong alien races, the ones with psychic powers and heavy armor, were leaving. They were saving themselves. They left the smaller ships behind to slow the enemy down. Humanity was part of the Alliance, but they were not treated like heroes. They were treated like helpers. Humans did not have magic powers. They did not have thick skin like the Krell or fast ships like the Valori. Humans were good at fixing things. They were good at carrying supplies. They were the mechanics and the cooks of the war. When the fighting started, the big alien ships jumped away. The human ships stayed to clean up the mess. Jack Cole stood in corridor 4 of Station Delta 9. He was a maintenance engineer. He wore a blue jumpsuit with grease stains on the knees. He held a heavy wrench in his hand. The floor shook under his boots. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jack looked at the damage report on his wrist computer. The power grid was failing. The life support was dying. It was time to go. A voice crackled over the station speakers. It was Commander Holt. Holt was a human officer, but he acted like the aliens. He cared more about orders than people. All human personnel, report to docking Bay 6 immediately, Holt said. His voice sounded stressed. We are leaving. Vorax have breached the outer hull. Repeat, this is not a drill. Abandoned ship. Jack looked down the hallway. It was empty. The alien crew had left hours ago. Now the humans were leaving too. Jack started to walk toward the docking bay. He walked fast. He did not want to die here. He was just a mechanic. He was not a soldier. But as he walked, his wrist computer beeped. It was a soft sound, different from the alarm. Jack stopped. He looked at the screen. There was a life sign. It was faint, but it was there. It was coming from the Royal Wing. That was the section of the station where the alien leaders stayed. It was sealed off. Everyone was supposed to be gone from there. Jack frowned. He tapped the screen. The signal blinked. Again, it was a heartbeat. Someone was alive in there. Someone was trapped. Jack turned away from the docking bay. He started walking toward the Royal Wing. The hallway got darker as he moved deeper into the station. The lights were flickering. Sparks flew from a broken panel on the wall. The air smelled like smoke and burnt metal. His radio buzzed. It was Commander Holt again. Cole, where are you? Hall asked. His voice was angry. Telemetry shows you are moving away from the exit. Turn around. Jack kept walking. I found a signal, Jack said. Someone is left in the Royal Wing. Leave them. Holt said that section is locked down. The aliens left their own people behind. Why should we die for them? Jack stopped at a heavy steel door. It was closed tight. He looked at the control panel. It was dead. He used his wrench to pry open the cover. He began to work on the wires because someone has to help. Jack said, you are a mechanic, not a hero. Holt snapped. You are ordered to return to the ship. The USS Dakota is ready to launch. If you are not here in 5 minutes we leave without you. Jack pulled 2 wires together. The door hissed and opened. Inside the room was a mess. Chairs were overturned. Glass was shattered on the floor. The life sign was stronger now. It was coming from under a large piece of fallen debris. Jack climbed over the rubble. He saw a hand. It was not human. It had purple skin and sharp nails. It was an alien, a high-ranking one. She was trapped under a metal beam. She was not moving. Jack dropped his wrench. He grabbed the beam. It was heavy, much heavier than a human should lift. But Jack did not think about that. He thought about the person underneath. He gritted his teeth. He pushed with all his strength. His muscles burned. The metal screeched against the floor. He lifted it just enough. He reached under the beam and pulled the alien out. She was wearing white robes with gold trim. She was an empress. She was unconscious. Jack checked her neck. She had a pulse. It was weak, but it was there. Cole. Report. Holt shouted over the radio. The Vorax are breaking through the main gate. We have to go now. Jack looked at the Empress. He looked at the door behind him. He could run. He could leave her. No one would know. He could tell them he tried. He could live. Jack picked up the Empress. She was light, but dead weight was hard to carry. He put her arm over his shoulder. He stood up. His legs shook. I'm not coming back. Jack said, you are crazy. Hall said, you will die. The humans are weak. We cannot fight the Vorax. Maybe we are weak, Jack said. He started walking toward the service exit. But we do not leave people behind. Jack reached up to his collar. He found the communication button. He pressed it and held it. The radio crackled one last time. Then there was silence. He had cut the connection. He was alone now. There were no orders. There was no backup. There was only him and the alien Empress. The station shook violently. Loud boom echoed through the halls. The Vorax were inside. Jack could hear them. They sounded like scratching metal. They were close. Jack tightened his grip on the Empress. He looked down the dark corridor. He did not have a gun. He did not have armor. He only had his wrench and his tools. He was just a human mechanic. The galaxy thought humans were soft. They thought humans would run when things got hard. Jack took a deep breath. The air was thick with smoke. He began to run. He ran toward the lower docks. He ran toward the USS Dakota. He did not know if he could save her. He did not know if he could save himself. But he knew he had to try. The alarm screamed around him, but Jack did not stop. He moved into the shadows, carrying the hope of the Alliance on his shoulder while the enemy hunted them. Both Jack's boots hit the metal floor hard. Each step sent a shock up his legs. The Empress was not heavy, but carrying someone while running was hard work. The station groaned around them. It sounded like a dying animal. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. The red alarm lights made everything look like blood. The air smelled like burnt wire and ozone. It was hard to breathe. Jack kept his mouth closed and breathed through his nose. He needed to save his energy. Jack turned a sharp corner. He slid against the wall to stop. He needed to catch his breath. His heart was beating very fast. He lowered the Empress gently to the floor. She leaned against the cold metal wall. Her eyes opened. They were a bright gold color. They looked sharp and dangerous. She looked at Jack. She saw the blue jumpsuit. She saw the human face. She saw the sweat on his brow. Where are the guards? She asked. Her voice was Weak but strong, it had a command in it. They are gone, Jack said. He checked his wrist computer. The power levels were dropping fast. The lights flickered and went dark for a second. Where is my shuttle? She asked. She tried to stand up. She winced in pain. Her leg was hurt. Blood stained her white robes. Destroyed, Jack said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small medkit. It was a standard human issue kit, nothing fancy. He knelt down. Let me see your leg. She pulled away. Do not touch me, human. I am Empress Vexa of the Frail Dominion. You are a mechanic. You should flee. Save yourself. Jack looked at her. He did not look afraid. He looked tired but steady. I am not fleeing, and I am not leaving you. Vexa stared at him. Humans were known to be soft. They broke easily. They did not have psychic powers. They did not have claws or thick skin. Why was this one still here? The station was falling apart. The Vorex were coming. Everyone knew the Vorex did not stop. You will die, Vexa said. The Vorex smell fear. They smell weakness. You are both, maybe, Jack said. He grabbed her leg before she could stop him. He sprayed a painkiller on the wound. It hissed when it touched her skin. Vexa gasped. The pain went away quickly. The numbness spread up her thigh. She looked at the small bottle in his hand. Human tech was simple, but it worked fast. Why did you come back? Vexa asked. The others left. My own people left. The Galactic Alliance ran away. They took their ships and jumped to safety. Why did a human stay? Jack stood up. He wiped his hands on his pants. He offered her his hand. She looked at it. It was a plain hand. No rings, no weapons, just calluses from work. She took it. He pulled her up. She put her arm over his shoulder again. Her weight settled on him because someone had to. Jack said, that is all. They started moving again. The corridor ahead was dark. The main lights were out. Jack turned on a small flashlight on his chest. The beam cut through the smoke. It bounced off the walls. They walked slowly. Vexa limped, but she did not complain. She watched Jack. He walked with purpose. He did not look at the dark corners with fear. He looked at the walls. He looked at the pipes. He was looking for a way through. He was reading the station like a book. They reached a large door. It was closed tight. The panel next to it was broken. Glass was shattered on the floor. Wires hung out like guts. It is locked, Vexa said. We must find another way. This leads to the royal escape pods. No time, Jack said. He knelt by the panel. He took out a screwdriver. He began to work on the wires inside. His hands moved fast. You cannot open this, Vexa said. This is a security door. It needs a code. It needs psychic clearance. Only a Frail mind can open it. Jack did not stop. It just needs power, he said. Sparks flew from the panel. Jack connected two blue wires. He twisted them together. The door hummed. Metal gears turned slowly. The door slid open. Vexa was surprised. She had seen masters of technology fail to open this door. A human mechanic did it with two wires and a tool. They stepped through. The air on the other side was colder. They were moving toward the lower levels. This was the industrial zone. It was full of pipes and engines. It was a maze of steel. Stop, Jack whispered. He held up his hand. Vexa froze. She listened. She heard it too. A clicking sound like metal on metal. It was coming from the left hallway. It echoed off the walls. Vorex scouts, Vexa said. Her voice was a whisper. They hunt in packs. If they find us, we are dead. They will Eat us? Jack looked at the hallway. He saw a shadow move. It was long and thin. It had many legs. It moved like a spider. Jack looked around. He saw a pipe on the wall. It was labeled steam. He looked at the floor. There was a grate. They crouched behind a large crate. The clicking sound got louder. The Vorax came into view. They were ugly creatures. They looked like machines mixed with bugs. They held weapons that glowed green. They scanned the area with red eyes. They did not speak. They only made noise. Vexa held her breath. She wanted to use her mind. She wanted to push them away with psychic power, but she was too weak. The injury made her focus hard. She felt useless. She was an Empress, but she was hiding behind a human mechanic. She felt shame. Jack watched the creatures. He did not reach for a weapon. He reached for the pipe. He turned a valve slowly. It made a small hiss. The Vorax turned toward the sound. They moved away from the crate. They went down the other hallway. Their claws clicked on the floor until the sound faded. Jack waited 10 seconds. Then he stood up. Let go, he said. They walked past the spot where the enemies were. Vexa looked at Jack. Her mind was racing. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to panic. But Jack was calm. He did not fight with strength. He fought with his brain. He used the station itself as a weapon. He used the environment. You are strange, Vexa said softly. Just practical. Jack said. They reached a junction. The path split in two. One way went to the cargo lifts. The other went to the maintenance shafts. The cargo lifts are faster. Vexa said we should take them. Too many cameras. Jack said the Vorax will see us on the screens. We take the shafts. That is dirty. Vexa said it is for waste and heat. It is not fit for royalty. It is safe, Jack said. He pointed to the dark opening. It smelled like oil. After you. Vexa looked at the dark hole. It was not fit for an Empress, but she looked at Jack. He was ready to go in first. He was ready to face the dark for her. He did not care about status. He cared about survival. She nodded. She stepped into the maintenance shaft. Jack followed. The ladder was steep. They climbed down into the belly of the station. The heat was intense. The noise of the engines was loud. It vibrated in their bones, but here the Vorax could not find them easily. The sensors did not reach down here. As they climbed, Vexa thought about the galaxy. The great races believed power was everything. They believed in ships and guns and magic. They looked down on humans, but here in the dark, a human with a wrench was saving the most powerful ruler. The sector. How far to your ship? Vexa asked. Her voice echoed in the shaft. 10 levels down, Jack said. Then we run to the docking bay. Can you make it? She asked. She looked at his tired face. Jack looked down at her. His face was covered in grease and sweat, but his eyes were clear. He did not look like a victim. We will make it, he said. I promise. Vexa believed him. For the first time in her life, she believed a human. They continued down into the dark, while the station died above them. Vorax searched the halls, but they did not look down. They did not think anyone would be foolish enough to go this way. But humans were foolish, and sometimes that was exactly what made them strong. Jack tightened his grip on the ladder. He would not stop until they were safe. The ladder ended at a heavy metal grate. Jack pushed it up. It was rusty and stuck. He pushed harder. His muscles screamed. Finally it gave way. He climbed out and helped Vexa up. They were in a large room full of machines. Giant engines hummed nearby. The heat was worse here. It felt like an oven. Sweat ran down Jack's face. His blue jumpsuit was dark with wet spots. Vexa leaned against a pipe. She was breathing hard. Her leg was still painful. The medicine was wearing off. She looked at Jack. He did not stop. He checked his wrist computer again. The map showed they were close, but the path was dangerous. We must rest, Vexa said. Her voice was weak. I cannot walk fast. Jack shook his head. We cannot stop. The Vorax are close. I can hear them. He was right. A low buzzing sound filled the air. It was the sound of Vorax wings. They were flying drones, small machines that hunted for heat. Jack pulled Vexa into the shadow of a large engine. They stood still. The drones flew overhead. Their red lights scanned the floor. They passed over the shadows. They did not see them. Jack let out a slow breath. He looked at the hallway ahead. It was wide and open. It led to the cargo elevators. But there was a problem. A group of Vorax soldiers stood there. There were 6 of them. They were tall and armored. They held heavy weapons. They were guarding the path. Vexa looked at them. Her hand went to her belt. She had no weapon. Her psychic power was low. She looked at Jack. He had only a wrench. We cannot pass. Vexa said. They will kill us. We must fight. Jack looked at the soldiers. He looked at the ceiling. He saw pipes running along the roof. They were labeled with yellow stripes. No fighting, Jack said. Fighting is loud. Fighting brings more enemies. Then we are trapped, Vexa said. She felt despair. She was an Empress. She was used to armies fighting for her. She was not used to hiding. She was not used to being helpless. Jack moved along the wall. He stayed in the shadows. He found a control panel on the wall. It was behind a glass cover. He broke the glass with his elbow. Inside were buttons and switches. What are you doing? Vexa asked. Fixing the problem, Jack said. He looked at the wires. He needed to find the right one. He traced the yellow pipe with his eyes. It led to a sprinkler system, but this was not water. This was a chemical fire suppression system. It was used for engine fires. The chemical was thick and heavy. It could stop a fire by smothering it. Jack took out his screwdriver. He opened the panel. He saw the circuit board. He did not know the code. He did not need the code. He just needed to complete the circuit. He touched 2 points with a screwdriver. Sparks flew. A light on the panel turned green. Above them, alarm sounded. It was different from the station alarm. It was a warning for chemical release. The Vorax soldiers looked up. They clicked their weapons. They did not understand. They did not know human technology. Jack grabbed Vexa. Get down, he said. He pulled her behind a large crate. He covered her head with his arm. Above them, the ceiling opened. A thick white foam poured out. It fell like snow. It covered the hallway. It covered the Vorax soldiers. The chemical was sticky. It hardened quickly. The soldiers tried to run. Their legs got stuck. The foam covered their weapons. It covered their sensors. They fell to the ground. They could not move. They could not see. The thick white cloud filled the air. Jack waited. He watched the soldiers struggle. They made angry noises, but they were trapped in the hard foam. They were not dead, but they could not fight. Jack stood up. He brushed some foam off his shoulder. It is clear, he said. Vexa stood up. She looked at the trapped enemies. She looked at Jack. She was amazed. He did not shoot them. He did Not use a bomb, he used the building itself. He used a safety system as a weapon. You are clever, Vexa said. I am a mechanic, Jack said. I know how things work. Most people look at a wall and see a barrier. I look at a wall and see pipes and wires. They walked past the trapped soldiers. The Vorax clicked and hissed, but they could not follow Jack and Vexa moved into the hallway. The air smelled like chemicals. It was cold now. The foam cooled the heat. Vexa walked beside Jack. She did not lean on him as much. Her confidence was returning, but it was different now. Before she felt strong because of her title. Now she felt strong because she was alive. Why do your people do this? Vexa asked. Why do you solve problems this way? The Krill use power. The Valori use speed. Humans use tricks. We have to, Jack said. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. If we try to beat you at your game, we lose. So we changed the game. We adapt. Vexa thought about this. The Galactic Alliance thought humans were weak. They gave them logistics jobs. They gave them cleanup jobs, but maybe that was why humans were dangerous. They learned to fix anything. They learned to use anything. They reached the end of the hallway. A large window looked out into space. Jack stopped. He looked out. The docking bay was below them. He could see the USS Dakota. It was a small ship compared to the alien dreadnoughts. It looked old. It looked beaten, but it was there. However, there was a problem. The docking bay was surrounded. 3 Vorax fighters hovered near the human ship. Their weapons were charged. They were waiting. Jack's face went serious. He lowered his hand from the window. What is it? Vexa asked. The ship is there, Jack said, but we cannot just walk to it. The enemy is waiting for us. Vexa looked at the ships. She knew human ships were not fast enough to outrun Vorax fighters in open space. If they launched, they would be destroyed. We need a plan, Vexa said. Jack nodded. He looked at his wrist computer. He looked at the station readings. The reactor core was unstable. The station was going to blow up soon anyway. I have an idea, Jack said, but it is dangerous. Tell me, Vexa said. Jack looked at her. His eyes were tired but bright. We use the station. We make the station our weapon. Vexa smiled. It was a small smile. She was beginning to like the human way of thinking. It was reckless. It was bold. It was very human. Lead the way, Jack. Cole, she said. Jack turned from the window. He started walking toward the reactor access tunnel. He did not look back. He knew the path was hard. He knew the odds were bad, but he had saved her. This far, he would not stop now. Foam was drying on the floor behind them. The trapped Vorax were still struggling, but Jack and Vexa were already gone. They moved into the shadows again, ready for the final challenge. The end was close, but first they had to survive the dock. The door to the reactor room was heavy and thick. Jack pushed it open. A wave of heat hit them. It was like opening an oven door. The noise was loud. A deep hum vibrated in their chests. The room was filled with blue light. The reactor core stood in the center. It was a large cylinder of glowing energy. Pipes ran from it to the walls. The floor was metal grate. They could see the machinery below. Jack walked to the main console. It was a desk with many screens. The screens showed numbers and graphs. Most of them were red. The system was failing. The station was dying. This is perfect, Jack said. He put his hands on the keyboard. Perfect? Vexa asked. She stood near the door. She held her injured leg. The heat was bothering her. This core will explode. It will kill us. Not if we are fast, Jack said. He started typing. His fingers moved quickly. I can overload the safety limits. The core will go critical. It will create a big shock wave. How big? Vexa asked. Big enough to push the Vorik ships away, Jack said. Big enough to give us a window to jump to hyperspace. Vexa looked at the glowing core. She felt fear. She was a ruler of a great empire. She had faced many dangers, but this was different. This was raw power. It was uncontrollable. Who will trigger it? She asked. I will, Jack said. He did not look up from the screen. No, Vexa said. She stepped forward. You must go to the ship. I will stay. I can hold the button. Jack stopped typing. He turned to look at her. His face was serious. You cannot stay. You need to pilot the ship. I know the systems here. I know how to make the explosion happen at the right second. If you stay, you might miss the timing. If I stay, I can wait until the last moment. You will die. Vexa said. Her voice was soft. The blast will catch you. I will run, Jack said. I'm fast. You are human, Vexa said. You are tired. You are hurt. Jack smiled. It was a tired smile. I have come this far. I am not stopping now. Vexa looked at him. She saw the determination in his eyes. She had seen warriors fight for honor. She had seen soldiers fight for money, but Jack was fighting for nothing. He was fighting because it was the right thing to do. She respected him. Okay, Vexa said. She nodded. I will pilot the Dakota. I will wait for your signal. Jack nodded back. Go, Vexa turned and ran out of the room. She moved faster than before. The pain in her leg was forgotten. She had a job to do. She ran down the hallway. She headed for the docking bay. Jack was alone in the reactor room. The hum got louder. The blue light got brighter. He continued to type. He bypassed the safety locks. He rerouted the power. Numbers on the screen went up. 10%, 20%, 50%. A sound came from the door. It was a scratching noise. The Vorex had found them. Jack did not look up. He kept typing. He needed to reach 90%. The door shook. Something hit it from the other side. Metal bent. Jack typed faster. His hands were sweating. The keyboard was slippery. Come on, he whispered. Door burst open. 3 Vorex soldiers stood there. They held their weapons up. They saw Jack. They saw the glowing core. They clicked their mouths. They understood what he was doing. One of them raised its gun. Jack ducked under the console. A green beam of energy flew over his head. It hit the wall. Sparks flew. Jack crawled to the side. He needed more time. He reached out and grabbed a cable. He pulled it hard. Screen flashed. 80%. The Vorex moved into the room. They walked toward the console. Jack stood up. He held his wrench. It was a small tool against their big guns, but he did not care. He looked at the timer on the screen. 90%. He pressed the final key. The system locked in. The overload was set. Core began to whine. The sound was high and painful. The blue light turned white. Jack turned and ran. He did not go toward the door. The Vorex were there. He went toward the maintenance shaft. He jumped onto the great floor. He slid under the console. The Vorex fired at him. The shots hit the metal near his head. He crawled into the dark tunnel. It was tight. He scraped his arms. He did not stop. He knew the layout. This tunnel led to the docking bay. It was a long way, but he had to Behind him the reactor room shook. The light got brighter, the heat grew. The Vorik soldiers stopped firing. They looked at the core. They knew what was happening. They turned to run, but it was too late. Jack crawled through the tunnel. He could feel the vibration getting stronger. The walls shook. Dust fell on his back. He coughed. He kept moving. Hand over hand, he thought about the ship. He thought about Vexa. He hoped she was safe. He reached the end of the tunnel. There was a grate. He pushed it. It was stuck. He kicked it. It flew open. He climbed out. He was in the docking bay. The USS Dakota was there. The engines were running. Blue fire came from the back. The ship was shaking. It was ready to leave. Vexa was in the cockpit. He could see her silhouette through the glass. Jack ran toward the ship. The ramp was down, but the Vorex fighters outside were moving. They saw the ship. They raised their weapons. Inside the ship, a voice spoke. It was the ship AI. Warning, enemy locks detected. Launch recommended. Immediately, Vex's voice came over the speaker. Wait for Jack. He is not on board. The AI said. Wait, Vexa commanded. Jack saw the ramp. He was 50 FT away. 40 FT. The Vorax fighters outside began to fire. Green beams hit the ground near him. The metal floor melted. Jack dove. He rolled behind cargo crate. He looked at the ship. He was too far. The explosion was coming. He could feel it in the air. The station was screaming. Jack stood up. He waved his arms. He started to run again. He did not look at the enemy ships. He only looked at the ramp. He ran with all his strength. His lungs burned. His legs felt heavy, but he pushed. Vexa saw him on the camera. He is close, she said. Hold steady. The Vorax fighters moved in. They wanted to destroy the ship, but they hesitated. The station was making a loud noise. The light from the reactor room was spreading down the halls. Jack reached the ramp. He jumped. He landed hard on the metal. He pulled himself up. He crawled into the ship. The ramp began to close. Got him, the AI said. Go. Vexa shouted. The ship lifted off. The engines roared. The Vorax fighters fired. Beams hit the shield of the Dakota. The ship shook violently. Jack held onto the wall. He was safe inside. But the danger was not over. The station was about to die, and they were still in the blast zone. Vexa pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot out of the bay. It flew into the dark space. Behind them, the station began to glow. The light was brighter than a star. The end was here. The light was blinding. It filled the viewscreen of the USS Dakota. The ship shook violently. The force of the explosion pushed the small vessel forward. It was like a giant hand throwing them into the dark. Vexa held the controls tight. Her hands did not shake. She focused on the coordinates. The computer beeped. Hyperspace engine ready. She pulled the lever. The stars stretched into long white lines. Then there was silence. They were safe. The station was gone. The Vorax fleet was gone. Jack sat in the co-pilot seat. He was tired. His breath came in short gasps. His blue jumpsuit was torn and covered in soot. He looked at the screen. The black space was empty. No enemies followed them. Vexa turned to look at him. Her gold eyes were soft. We made it, she said. Jack nodded. He leaned back in the chair. Good, now I can sleep. The ship traveled through hyperspace for 2 days. They arrived at the safe zone. It was a quiet place far from the war. Many ships were there. Large alien ships from the Galactic Alliance floated in the dark. They were shiny and new. They had heavy armor and big guns. The USS Dakota looked small. Next to them, it was covered in burn marks. The paint was peeling. It looked like a toy compared to the dreadnoughts. Other ships hailed them. They asked if the Empress was safe. Vexa answered them. She told them to wait. She had something to say. She did not want to talk over the radio. She wanted to look them in the eye. The Galactic Council met on a large space station. It was made of white stone and glass. It floated near a blue planet. Leaders from every race were there. They sat in high chairs arranged in a circle. They looked down on the humans. Humans usually sat in the back. They usually took notes. They did not speak. When Vexa entered, the room went quiet. She walked with confidence. Her leg was healed. She wore her royal robes of white and gold. Behind her walked Jack. He wore his blue jumpsuit. He had cleaned the grease off his face, but the stains on his clothes remained. He looked out of place. Aliens whispered, why was a human mechanic here? Why was he walking beside an Empress? Vexa stood at the center of the room. The High Counselor leaned forward. He was a tall alien with green skin. Empress Vexa, he said, we are glad you are alive. We thought the Vorex had taken you. How did you escape there? Ships surrounded the station. Vexa looked around the room. She saw the faces of the powerful leaders. They looked proud. They looked safe. I am alive, she said, but I did not save myself. The counselors looked confused. You are powerful, one said. You have psychic gifts. You must have fought your way out. Vexa shook her head. No, I was trapped. I was weak. I could not move. I could not fight. A human saved me. She pointed to Jack. He stood still. He looked at his boots. He did not like the attention. The room became very quiet. The aliens looked at Jack. They saw a small man in a dirty uniform. They did not see a hero. They saw a worker. Prove it, the High Counselor said. His voice was skeptical. Vexa pressed a button on her wrist. A large screen lit up behind her. It showed the station logs. It showed video from the cameras. The aliens watched. They saw Jack opening the locked doors with wires. They saw him trapping the Vorex with foam. They saw him overloading the reactor. They saw him running to the ship while the station burned. They saw him jump onto the ramp just in time. The video ended. The room was silent. No one spoke. The aliens looked at their hands. They felt shame. They had fled. They had left their posts. They had saved themselves. This human had stayed. He had risked everything for a species that did not respect him. The leader of the Valerai stood up. He was tall and proud. He usually looked down on humans. Today, he looked at Jack with respect. We thought humans were weak, he said. His voice was low. We thought they were only good for cleaning and fixing. We were wrong. Jack spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but clear. I just did my job, he said. I saw a problem. I fixed it. That is what mechanics do. Vexa smiled. She looked at the council. You see, she said, humans do not seek glory. They seek to help. That is why they are strong. The council voted that day humanity was given full rights. They were no longer just helpers. They were partners. They were given seats at the table. The humans in the room stood taller. They looked at Jack. He was one of them, but he was also something more. Jack did not change. He did not want power. He did not want money. He did not want a medal. He just wanted to go home. He wanted to fix engines. He wanted to do his work. Weeks later, Jack was back. On a ship. It was a new human vessel. He was fixing an engine in the lower deck. It was hot and loud. He liked it. It felt normal. A young alien officer came. To him, the officer was from the Frail Dominion. He wore a uniform with gold stripes. The officer stopped. He looked at Jack. He had never saluted a human before. Today he raised his hand. He saluted. Jack stopped working. He wiped his hands on a rag. He saluted back. He did not say anything. He went back to work. He tightened a bolt. He hummed a tune. The galaxy had changed. The aliens learned that strength was not about size or magic. It was about heart. It was about doing the right thing when no one was watching. Jack looked at the stars outside the window. They shone bright. He thought about the explosion. He thought about Vexa. He was glad she was safe. He was glad the war might end sooner. He was just a human, but now the galaxy knew what that meant. It meant hope. It meant courage. It meant never leaving anyone behind. Jack put his wrench in his pocket. He was ready for the next job.